Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In our last video we looked at how the brand new FSLTL and Navigraph integration officially brought live traffic back to Microsoft Flight Simulator and Flight Simulator 2024. The response was huge, but let's be real. Anytime a major mod gets a ground up overhaul, things are bound to get a little bit glitchy. I've been diving into the official support forums and tracking the Discord channels where FSLTL core developers like BirdmanRS have been answering community questions. A lot of you are running in some frustrating snags, empty airports, missing config files, planes refuse to take off, or confusion about why aircrafts aren't landing on the exact real-world runways they should be. Crucially, a lot of these issues depend heavily on whether you are running the classic Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 or the newer Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 platform. Today we are answering your exact questions, troubleshooting the most common installation bugs, breaking down how the two simulators handle live traffic differently, and tweaking the advanced settings to get your skies looking perfect. Let's dive in. First up, let's tackle the technical headaches. A lot of you reported that you can't find the configuration file. Let me show you where you can find it. If you had percentage app data, percentage, then go to FSLTL injector and hit enter, that's where you find the config file. If you didn't run FSLTL already, then it likely doesn't exist. If you already did run it, then it should exist and you can simply open it using Notepad, for example. And here you can see the running config. But if you don't have it, then make sure that you simply start FSLTL. So also let me show you how you do that. There are multiple ways to do that, and the first way is by simply starting the fly-by-wire installer. Here you have it, fly-by-wire installer. There you go to the radar, to the injector, and then you simply hit the start button, which will run the configuration file. In some cases you need to run the tool as administrator, so let me also show you how to do that. You close it and then you simply go to the start menu, you search for fly-by-wire and then you click run as administrator or right click the icon and say run as administrator. The moment you do that, you will get a pop-up which you need to confirm and then FSLTL starts. Now there's one warning I want to give you. If you don't start Flight Simulator before starting FSLTL, it will by default think it needs to go into Flight Simulator 2020 mode. So recommendation is first start your Flight Simulator version, after that start FSLTL and we'll create the config file for you. For now I will simply show how it works. So I can start it. It says okay, hey, this is your community folder. These are the current settings. Do you want to change anything? I can say yes or no. If I say yes, it will open up the web config where you can change the provider as well as several other settings, and after that when you click save and start the injector, it will start doing its work. Now in some very weird scenarios you might even go a step further and you might need to perform this. You need to open the command prompt as administrator, then go to your community folder, which is in my case MSFS 2024, then community, and then I will go into the FSLTL directory. Make sure that you go into the FSL traffic injector directory. Here you will find the executable, you can see it over here, FSLTL traffic injector, and then simply start it from here. It's not always required, but I've seen scenarios where it might be needed. In this case, it will tell me again what's going to do if I want to make change to the configuration, and then you repeat the same thing like I just showed you. Simply use the web GUI to make the configuration changes and make sure to save the configuration. Now, if you thought that was everything, no, there could be other things which are preventing you from creating the file. This is really specific and, for example, applicable to people who have set their regional settings to Chinese or other specific regional settings. In that case, FSLTL will fail to read the file path correctly. What you need to do in that case is open the region control panel. If you type region, you can go to it, then go to administrative and hit the change system locale and make sure that you switch on this setting. This setting will ensure that FSLTL can read the directory. Once you made the change, make sure to hit OK and of course reboot the system, because this is a setting which might only work once you restarted the system. Another error popping up for new users might be this one. SIM exception create object field for a specific aircraft. But in most cases, if you encounter issues with this, the log will be flooded completely with these error messages, which results in 0 planes being visible. This means that the simulator cannot find or load the actual FSLTL package. In that case, make sure that the FSLTL base liveries, let me show them. I'm going to my community folder. And here you will find it. Make sure that you install these objects, because if one of those things are missing, it will likely throw that error. Besides that, always recommended to make sure that Flight Simulator did load these packages. Let me quickly show you how you can do that. So we're starting with Flight Simulator 2024, and to go to the Content Manager, you go to your profile and then click on the Content Manager. In this case, a long list will appear, so it's easier to search for it, FSLTL, and in this case you can see it's installed. More than this you really can't do. This confirms that it has detected the package and that it should work. But that again, it should work, right? So make sure that you find it here. If you find it here, it's good. Now let me show you the same for Flight Simulator 2024. In Flight Simulator 2024, you simply go to the marketplace. Inside the marketplace, you go to the My Library. And inside the My Library, you can also search, right? You can search in this case for FSLTL and then hit enter. And then you will see that also these packages are installed. So this is the only thing which you need to do to simply confirm. Have they been installed? Has Flight Simulator detected it? If yes, then you at least know that this part is good. Let's talk about weird aircraft behavior, because recent simulator updates have introduced some challenging bugs. Several users already noted that while static planes show up at the gates, absolutely nothing is moving, taxiing or takeoff. FSLTL developer BirdmanRS shed some light on this in the community Discord, and this is where the difference between Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and 2024 becomes critical. If you're still on Flight Simulator 2020, SimConnect injected traffic is running relatively smoothly. However, in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, recent simulator-based updates introduced severe ground bugs that completely break SimConnect ground traffic. The simulator's native engine gets planes stuck in an infinite pushback state, so they never actually start their taxi sequence. Fortunately, the community figured out a brilliant workaround that skips this buggy behavior entirely. You can simply modify the aircraft config files in your FSLTL base models pack. Let me show you how to do it. As you can see, I'm in my community folder already, so I can go to the FS traffic base. Then inside this one I can go to the sim objects, go to the planes, and then I can open any of these folders. If I go to these folders, you will see a lot of files over here. But the one you need to modify is the aircraft file. You can open it and then you need to go to the services section. You can use either Notepad or one of your other editors which you, I would say, prefer. And then you need to change the pushback, in this case, to 0. Reason why, if it's set to pushback 1, which is the default value, it will use the new method, which is likely a little bit buggy. So if you change it back to 0, it forces the planes to bypass that broken pushback sequence and start taxiing normally. Now, of course, if you need to modify all these files, then there's a lot of work. Because you can see in the airplanes folder, there are, I'd say, a lot of files. Now, of course, someone in the community has created a script for this to automate this piece. So he has created, taken a full extension what you need to do, right? So you need to, say, copy the content of this file. This is exactly the script. What you need to do is you need to change the root path as well as the log path. This simply to make sure that the, in this case, correct directory is being updated. So let me show you how you can do this. So the first thing you need to do is download the script, but there's also another other way. You can either download as a raw file. I will show it to you. And this will give you a warning. You can either say keep or delete. I'm saying keep. And then it has created the file. Of course, I already had the file. So let me show you what I modified. So I'm going to my folder where I store these scripts. So this is the file. You can simply edit it by clicking on it and then say open or right click on it. Let me show that again because I went maybe a little bit too quick, and then say open with and then select Notepad or one of your other favorite editors. Based on that, you need to change this line. It needs to point to the FSLTL directory. So in my case, what I'm going to do is double check it. I'm going to go to my 2024 community folder, go to the traffic base one, and then select sim objects, select the airplanes, and this is the folder which I want to modify. So I'm copying this line, and then I will simply replace it over here. Make sure to add a backslash after it because that's needed. What we'll then do is we'll find the file. It will line to find is pushback is 1, and it will simply replace by pushback is 0, and then you can create a log file. In this case, I modified to this, and it helps you figure out, okay, hey, did the script work, yes or no? So besides these changes, make sure to set this one to false, because else what will happen is it will run the script but won't change anything. So once you've done that, click save and you're good to go. Now the second step, you can either follow the instructions on the GitHub repository. Let me go one page back, but you can also do it a little bit different, because in this case you will change it for always, while in your case you might only want to change it once. I'm going to show you how to only change it once, and then once you're completed, you can simply close PowerShell, reopen it, and then it will be back to the defaults. So you need to search for PowerShell, and depending on the version of Windows you either have PowerShell 5.1 or 7. I'm going to show it in 5.1, so I'm going to right click on it, say run as administrator. It will give you a prompt which you need to accept, and then we're in PowerShell. Now I go to my development directory where I store the script, and I'm gonna say try to execute the script, but it will not work because I need to set the execution policy. This is a protection from Microsoft to avoid that you, I would say, run every script, because as you can imagine, it can also be that someone malicious runs the script. But in this case, I'm going to say minus scope, process, and then I'm going to set remote signed, because that's the option I want to do. In this case, it asks me for confirmation, so we'll click yes and then hit enter. And then it's time to run the script, so I can do the .pushback ps1 or the file you gave the script, and then simply hit enter. Now it will start making these changes, which goes pretty fast because it will take, let's say, half a minute or something, maybe even less. It will also create a backup of the configuration. So once you've done that, you can go back into one of the airplanes, and then you can see the backup files being created. And if you right click it and open the file, you can see that the pushback has now been set to 0, which forces the plane again to bypass the broken pushback sequence and start taxiing normally. So now we made this modification, you can of course start Flight Simulator and test it. It should fix it, but again, Asobo should fix it on their end, because it looks like that the pushback bug is created by them and by making some changes recently. One of the things which you will observe is if you change the value to 0, that the taxiing is a little bit weird. It might be that the aircraft simply turns around completely, just like this one, but eventually they will start taxiing, which is better than they're getting stuck and not taxiing at all. Now you might think, okay, is this everything? Did we fix everything? No, because there can be other things which can go wrong, and that's the 1000 sim object limit. Because if there are a lot of aircrafts injected into Flight Simulator, you will eventually hit the sim object limit. Based on some research and based on several, let's say, non-official sources, the limit is roughly 1000, and after that it will simply stop drawing things, which means that it simply doesn't add any aircrafts. So if that's the case, what you need to do is the following. Let me show you quickly in Flight Simulator 2024. So how to change the value is simply by going to the settings and go to the graphics, then go to the global rendering quality, and then you need to scroll down to this section, which contains both the character quantity as well as the airport service quantity. If you think you hit the limit, then reduce it to, for example, low, and then test it out again. You can see that I already changed the character quantity to low, and then simply give it a try. In some cases it resolves the issue. However, if you're very, let's say, conservative in configuring the settings, then you shouldn't have hit this limit. Don't forget to hit apply and save, and then hit escape and feedback. The other thing which you might want to check is if you go to the FSLTL settings, which can be done either using that web GUI or using the toolbar. Make sure that you set the additional parked aircrafts to maximum 3, maybe 2, and keep your max active IFR aircrafts to 80 or lower. This again also has an impact on the performance, so be very careful with, I would say, increasing these values to higher values. Now another thing which you might observe is that aircrafts are using the wrong runway. For example, this aircraft, the Ryanair one, which is, I would say, en route currently to Echo India Delta Whiskey. If you see it over here, it's using this runway. You can see a lot of those aircrafts are using this runway. But if we would go into Flight Simulator, you would see that all the aircrafts, including the ones which you showed, or which you just saw on the map, are taking a complete different runway. Right, they're going, I would say, pretty far away. Whereas, I would say in the map, they're using this one. They're using runway 24. This is also a known issue, which is also confirmed by the developers. And this is something they are struggling with. So they say also, hey, they're using a different method than, for example, PSXT. But FSLTL injects high fidelity real-world traffic data into the simulator. But once the aircraft is spawned, the native Flight Simulator engine takes full control. So it's not that the injector does things. No, it's the simulator itself. And this allows the traffic to seamlessly interact with the ATC in Flight Simulator. And then it also uses the airport taxi logic and user environment. But it also means that Flight Simulator will decide the active runway based on its own internal weather and wind calculations, not what is happening live on Flight Radar 24, for example. In addition to that, there were a lot of questions already about the delay. And the delay in this case with Flight Radar can be up to 2 minutes, but normally it goes a little bit quicker. Based on my testing, let's say tools like PSXT, which require another subscription, no people, it's not free, those are doing it a little bit quicker. And if you want to know how quick, then have a look at my other videos which I posted recently about this topic, because this is a hot topic currently. For those who are asking about the footprint and performance in Flight Simulator, of course, adding these models, adding these aircraft to Flight Simulator, there will be an impact. But the team behind FSLTL also said, okay, they're not planning to distribute downscaled packs. So you either have to deal with performance impact and high quality liveries, or simply decide not to use them at all. What does it impact the most? Likely the CPU performance. So if you get a strong CPU, then you should be good to try more aircrafts than the default settings. And this also gives me the ability to show you the built-in toolbar, which allows you to make changes. So you can see that I can change it to IFR flight limit 200. I can also make some other changes simply by dragging it like this and then say reset traffic injection. Once you've done that, it will reset everything, so be aware of that, and it will respawn all the aircrafts, at least in most cases. Not in all cases, sometimes you see that they simply don't appear again. In that case, simply wait a few minutes and then they should be returning back to Flight Simulator 2024, because likely the previous aircraft have already departed. Now, of course, there are people who are using, for example, VATSIM. VATSIM is an online network, an online ATC network, which makes it more realistic to use Flight Simulator. And of course, you could use, in this case, FSLTL to inject some traffic and then simply turn it off once you think, okay, hey, there are enough aircrafts. Because as you just saw, once I hit reset FSLTL, that's the same thing as shutting down FSLTL. All those aircrafts which are inserted by FSLTL will simply disappear. And then of course we've got the people who are using tools like BeyondATC and say intentions. Remember that FSLTL is simply the data injector and model provider. Advanced third-party ATC programs read the SimConnect traffic data seamlessly, meaning they will see FSLTL planes around you, talk to them and sequence you into the flow perfectly. So the collaboration between FSLTL, Navigraph and Flight Radar 24 is a way in the correct direction. However, there are still a lot of hurdles to take, and that's why I also created this video to help you a bit, I would say, looking at those issues and resolving those issues. I of course tested both Flight Simulator 2020 and 2024 in parallel, And I must say the FSLTL tool works better in 2020 compared to 2024. Although with that fix, by modifying the taxi setting, you can see that it already has improved a lot. I again want to do a massive shout out to the developers like BirdmanRS, who spent countless of volunteering hours to find workarounds and to make this tool work. There are people who are doing this in their spare time. Also, they made clear that due to the bugs in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, that FSLTL might not be the right option currently. However, they are continuously investing on this, but of course there's also dependency in this case on Asobo to fix some of these issues. So for those who want to have a stable environment and can live with a larger delay, it might be a better solution to simply switch to the built-in solution within Flight Simulator 2024 by using the live traffic data, between brackets live, which is built in into Flight Simulator 2024. I want to make sure this helps everyone to get back into bustling working skies. I hope that the script will help you a bit if you want to use FSLTL. If you got some other issues or if you have some other recommendations, then feel free to put them in the comment box below, because you can help other people and also me to learn from your experience. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back next time.